Good evening, everyone. This video is going to be a support session and trading review for September 27th, 2023. We did have a little bit of news this morning. Let's go through that real quick. So at 5:30, we had core durable good orders and durable good orders. Both were over a little bit above forecast. So and the market was up a little bit after that news. So we're going to take a look at what the day looked like as we were coming into the open. So let me just go ahead and bring up the daily chart, not the the big picture chart, because when the overnight session was kind of up, right, and London opened about here, right, and initially took it up. Then it kind of played, zigzag between the daily bias and the 25% upper line. And this was the 5:30 type news announcement. So as you can see, it came up a little bit over these prior pivots, but it didn't get past the pivot that was made about an hour or so into the London Open. And then it kind of moved down. And the problem ended up being a pretty significant down day. The problem through this area, and you can see that it was for quite some time, it was a fairly significant drawdown. So all the way down into the alternate S3 area. So let's see. Or is that S2? I think that might be S2. But it's a very big day range yesterday, so this is S2. Held at S2 and cropped back up. The problem in here was one of the Feds earlier had been talking about maybe keeping the interest rates high all of 2024, and there's also some not from the Feds, but there's some quote unquote financial experts saying, get prepared for 7% Fed. I think that's a little bit high. I don't think we've seen anything that says that it needs to be that way. But that spooked the market some, and the fact that we've got to pass either a budget or a continuing resolution by Sunday, or the U.S. government shuts down. And the Senate passed a continuing resolution on a bipartisan basis, and the House won't pick it up. They won't vote on it. So McCarthy has shut that down, and so that's not really very good news. And so we'll see what the next couple of days bring. So the market kind of got spoofed a little bit about a potential government shutdown. It did come back, and it did bounce back, and came back pretty much all the way back into yesterday's close kind of an area. So while it looks, so it's going to have a big tail. So let's go ahead and take a look at the daily. This is kind of prepping for tomorrow some, just to see what today ended up looking like. And let me bring up the daily so you can see the tail, right? It came all the way down to below the 2x200 or the 200-day moving average, and as you can see, had a pretty big tail. When we first opened up, this was slightly green, right? But it took out that pivot, came down to the 200-day moving average, and popped up from there. So it was kind of a light volume day after the open. So let's just kind of go through the trades. So this is my first trade actually prior to the open. The open was here, but it looked like everything was down, right, and it popped down. So I actually took a quick trade there, and then right after the open, and it came back down. But it has all of this stuff to deal with, right? Didn't really make too much of an effort to come down. So I ended up taking a trade here, and it didn't quite get out. I think I needed one more tick. It came back up into this range. I added to it, and was out in this range, well before my previous exit. But I'm pretty sure. It would have even exited here, right? Had I not added on to it. Then waited. This was a pretty big bar as I was kind of watching it. It was an expansion bar, but I did jump in when it looked like it wasn't going to bounce from there, and that was my third trade. So let me move it over some, and then I was kind of watching it. I mean, like I said, we weren't getting a whole lot of volume signals. I have some regret here. I did not take a trade through this area, and and so I just didn't know if I could trust the long or not because I kind of felt that there were some things going on the short side. But it came up to this 2x200 and 3 minute and the 5 minute that can be, especially if it's already made a pretty big run up to that area, kind of a resistance point. Came all the way back down. Took a trade here, and this is when I had to add two. So I added to it here and was out over here. Still, is VWAP, volume point of control area, still wasn't the most comfortable trade. And then breaking down below, right, just breaking down below the slow flex is sometimes a bounce, right? And it turns out it was a bounce, but I got out of it. And so now we're coming into 7 o'clock. And again, back up into pretty traditional pullback area. Everything's moving down. So short here and out. Didn't chase it any further. Pulled back up. Waited to see what I thought the sentiment was. It looked like it was coming back down fairly well. Got in here and out before it hit the Globex low and started making new lows. And so I'm already up and it's kind of a weird day. I did end up trading a little bit more as well after we got done. So not really. I think I'm probably maybe up 8-ish or so at this point. And I took one more trade. Didn't call this one, right? Because I'd already said I'm okay with 8. Didn't call this one, and I wasn't really looking really close. So I ended up being a little bit late to this trade. This would have been probably a better area, right? So I let it pop up, pull back. It looked like it was going to continue. So I took one more trade, and so I was up 9 by then. And then I took a couple more trades, and then stopped looking at the market. The other trades I took were after 8:30. But as you saw from the big picture chart, it did keep moving down for some time, and then made a pretty serious breakup. So it could have been better than an 11-point day, but 11 points is not a bad day at all. So that was kind of today. I mean, so the market is going to likely be a little bit nervous and listening closely to McCarthy and the House, the House Speaker and maybe even the Senate, to see what's going to go on in terms of getting a continuing resolution passed. I don't think there's any way that they're going to pass a budget beyond just getting a continuing resolution on the books and making sure the government gets funded for at least some period of time. All right, so that's it. Should be interesting for the rest of the week. Like I said, something has to get passed by Sunday. I don't know the exact time, but by Sunday, in order to prevent a government shutdown. It's happened before. Let's hope they get their act together so that it doesn't happen again. All right, have a good evening, and we will see you in the trading room tomorrow morning.